Welcome to this week's edition of the Commissioner's Corner. I've got three defensemen on the screen with me today. Excited to share the screen with these three awesome young women. Shayla Edwards, sophomore defenseman representing the University of Wisconsin. Sophie Jaques, junior defenseman representing the Ohio State University. And Crystalyn Hengler, junior defenseman representing the University of Minnesota. Good afternoon, ladies. How are we doing?
Good.
Good as well.
Lots of smiles. It's getting warmer outside. I think for all of us, it's been a little cold lately, even though you're used to it inside the hockey rink. I appreciate you all joining me today. So this is a segment that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've had some conversations with a couple of you offline about this. But given that we're in the middle, actually truly the middle of Black History Month, and there was a story put out last week about the Black female NCAA Division I hockey players, which Shayla was on, and unfortunately Crystalyn and Sophie were not, because that's something that we'll talk about as we get into the segment. But really just appreciate you joining to talk a little bit about being underrepresented in our sport, not only because of your skin color, but also because you're a woman. And so the uniqueness that you all three have as being Black female collegiate hockey players and the path that you're paving for future Black female collegiate hockey players. So I want to start with this. I want to let you share with everyone a little bit about yourselves and how you got into hockey. So Shayla, let's start with you. Tell us where you're from and how hockey became an important piece of your life.
So I'm from Cleveland Heights, Ohio. That's a suburb near Cleveland. And so I got into hockey because my dad played, and he started me, my younger brother, my younger sister, my older brother. He all started us on skates when we were about 7 years old. So I started figure skating actually first. And then I did that and hockey at the same time. But my parents were like, no, you got to choose one of them. So it was hockey all the way. And so I just kind of stuck with that. And I played at a boarding school in Pittsburgh for high school. And then now I'm at Wisconsin. And I'm so glad I picked hockey over figure skating, because I'm not going to do that now.
It didn't seem like it was a hard decision back then, and obviously now you're real happy. So yeah. I'm going to stay there for a second. Cleveland Heights, Ohio, not Hockeytown, USA. So how difficult was it for you to stay in hockey once you really got into it and obviously had to make the decision to go to Pittsburgh for boarding school?
At first it wasn't too hard because there were youth teams in Cleveland Heights. Like you said, it's not a big hockey town. But as I started to kind of get better, I realized that if I wanted to play at a higher level, I would probably have to leave Cleveland Heights, which was tough because it's always hard to leave your family. But then I realized, okay, I can go away for high school to Pittsburgh, which is definitely better for hockey. And so I got to practice a lot there and play a lot more than in Cleveland.
So. All right, Sophie, let's hear from you. Toronto, Ontario, so maybe more of Hockeytown in Canada than we were in Cleveland. But tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into hockey.
Yeah, so actually neither of my parents played hockey, but I think it's just that we have a ton of rinks in our neighborhood, and like my first season of hockey was played on an outdoor rink. So just growing up, there was just always everyone, like if you wanted an activity, we were all going to go play shinny and get out on the rink. And I actually started in boys hockey, so I didn't play girls hockey until grade 7 or 8. So like I grew up playing with the guys, and I think hockey was just like a huge part of the community and everyone kind of played. So it was just a fun thing that everyone did.
So you had to play with the boys, which is also a common theme that I've heard. That was pretty normal. Better playing with the boys or better playing with the women?
I think it was fun playing with the boys, but you just reached an age where it's like, okay, maybe not the boys anymore. Like I played 1 year actually with contact with the boys. And then after that, I was like, okay, maybe it's time to head over to girls hockey.
Well, I'm glad that you had the opportunity to head over to girls hockey. That's excellent. Crystalyn from Eden Prairie, the state of hockey, all those things. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you found yourself in the sport of hockey.
Yeah, so mine's kind of similar to Sophie's. State of hockey. So we had ice rinks everywhere. Could find ice anytime. But I also played boys hockey up until 8th grade, and then I transitioned to high school hockey. But yeah, why I wanted to play hockey was I was watching an NHL game and I was just so intrigued by the goalie. But I mean, here I am, not even a goaltender, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, so I just got, yeah,
Just got looped in and couldn't get rid of it, huh? You were
exactly.
stuck. How
Yep.
much did you play outdoors growing up, Crystalyn?
Oh my gosh, a lot. My mom would have to like drag me in to come eat dinner because I'd just be out there for hours.
There's worse things you can do, I guess, than be playing outside and playing hockey. That's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
So one of the things that we hear often in our game, and it's become a bit of a tagline, is this idea of hockey is for everyone, right? We see it on social media, and quite honestly, there are moments where I struggle with that a little bit. I mean, I personally, in my position, when I'm on calls with my colleagues, I'm the only female with a group of men. So not totally unusual in sport for women, but you know, it's a bit more unique in hockey. It's a very male-driven sport. So I'm curious from your perspective, kind of what does hockey is for everyone mean? When you hear that, what do you think? And do you feel like our sport is following through on that message right now? Shayla, let's start with you.
When I think of hockey is for everyone, I think that no matter who you are, what you identify as, you feel like you belong and you feel like you're supported on any team. And I think that hockey, you know, it's getting there to live up to that. I definitely think that there have been some challenges with that as far as like individual teams, and then looking at professional leagues, the NHL. I think there are definitely more steps we can take to get there, to best support Black players or players of color. I think just reach out to them and see what you can do to make them feel supported and feel like they belong on that team. And as far as like institutions, I think it's hard because when you're one of the only players of color in your team, it feels like it's your responsibility, or a lot of the burden falls on you to educate people or to create change. So I think it's important for coaches and even other players to put something together, have these conversations, educate yourself, so that it's not all on the player of color. And I just think, you know, we can definitely get there. I think it's so exciting to see the change that has been happening, especially within this past year. And I'm just really excited to see where that's going to lead.
I appreciate that. We're going to come back to the kind of the institutional and support system piece of it. How about for you, Sophie? What does hockey is for everyone? What do you think of when you hear that phrase? And do you think we're close to making it true?
Yeah, so when I hear hockey is for everyone, I just think that like everyone should be able to play hockey if they want to. And I think while we're like trying to make that work, that it isn't there yet. And I think one of the major barriers is just the economic side of it, because hockey is such an expensive sport and so many kids like literally just can't afford to play. So like just finding a way to make it more like accessible and getting kids into it, as I think a way to like get way more people from different backgrounds involved in the game.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. How about for you, Crystalyn? What does hockey is for everyone mean to you?
Yeah, I would say just regardless of where you come from, your background, the color of your skin, that, you know, you're able to play the sport, and play it and feeling comfortable with it. And then when I do watch NHL games, I feel like I do see more people of color and mixed athletes for sure. But kind of like what Sophie was saying, if we could like implement it more into younger athletes, because I think that's where we're starting to kind of fall off.
Yeah.
I'd seen people of color at a young age. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So last week I had a chance to talk to Liv Soares, who is an alumni of Ohio State and also a player of color. And she shared with me that she had a picture of Evander Kane on her bedroom wall because he looks like her, and that, you know, she didn't necessarily feel like she had, you know, female players of color as role models as she was really getting into the sport and really starting to fall in love with it. So I'm curious for you all, did you have some role models, that male or female, you know, any different race, that kind of served as your, you know, reminder or push to get in and stay in the sport? I'm going to go backwards this time. Crystalyn, let's start with you.
growing up when I kind of first started hockey, I wouldn't really say anyone in particular. But I guess kind of in high school, I kind of looked up to PK Subban just because he was starting to get huge too in the NHL. So I think he puts himself on social media in a good way too as well. So
I like it. I like following him as well. How about for you, Sophie? Role models, male, female?
Yeah, I didn't say I would have any like specific role models growing up, but I think like once I got older in hockey, I started to look up to girls on the Canadian women's national team. So Haley Wickenheiser, I think, was one for me. And then as I learned more about like being a person of color, I looked more up to Angela James, who played for the national team and was a person of color there.
Yeah, she just did a phenomenal podcast that I'll make sure to share with you if you haven't heard it. She's a great listen. How about for you, Shayla? Role models as you got into it or are staying in it?
When I first started, I looked up to my older brother. He's also a defenseman, so I tried to watch him and learn a thing or two. But when I got older, I think Blake Bolden, I looked up to her a lot. She's also a defenseman, and I think she lived in Cleveland or is from Cleveland. And so I was really lucky to be able to have her to look up to. And I got to mentor with her for a little bit. So that was a really
That's
good experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how does it feel? How do you feel about the idea that maybe you all are serving as mentors or role models to young players of color right now? And I think about one of the things we did last year at our final face-off was bring, youth teams in to watch you practice, spend a little bit of time on the ice with you. And there was a particular moment with Ohio State and actually with Liv, but the youth team that they had a couple of players of color on the team, and they navigated and gravitated towards her so quickly that it was just like, I felt like there was kind of the aha moment in some ways for them that, hey, there are players of color, and they certainly, I think, had seen others because there are more women at an age currently playing. That makes sense, but it seems like potentially this is a space for you all to be mentors and role models. And so how does that make you feel? And is it a place where, you'd like to see yourself? Sophie, let me start with you.
Uh, yeah, no, I think it's really good to just build the game and seeing like that players have someone to look up to. I don't know, for me at least, sometimes like I don't realize the thing. Like when setting up this call, it's like, wow, like you really don't see how much of a minority you are in the league sometimes, for me at least. So just knowing that and knowing just trying to like build up a reputation so that more girls and players of color can get into hockey is just something that I think is really important. So I'm just happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, excellent. Shayla, how about for you?
Like Sophie said, I'm just really happy to be a part of it. I've always been kind of a shy person who didn't like to speak up, but now I feel more compelled to use my platform and use my voice to make the hockey culture better for other women of color, especially my sisters coming to Wisconsin. So I really want to do what I can to change the culture here, make it so that she feels comfortable here and that she belongs here.
How about for you, Crystalyn? Are you finding your voice in all of this, and do you want to have a voice in all of it?
yeah, it's awesome. I mean, when I was that young of an age, I didn't really have as many options to look up to someone like some people do now, which is awesome. But yeah, and then I also think back to high school where sometimes I'd get approached after games by little girls that would come to the games, and it'd be people, girls of color, and like their fathers would come up to me and just say like how appreciative that, I'm playing hockey at a high level and all that. So that was always just something cool that came along with it. It's just getting that feedback from young girls and their parents. So
Have any of you, and any of you can answer this, did any of you, or have you had, since you got started in hockey, have you had issues? Have you had moments of, um, of difficulty given the fact that you were a player of color playing hockey? Issues with teammates, issues with other teams, instances of, racism that of note that you'd want to share?
I can say one.
Yeah, go for it.
There's always kind of an issue with saying the N word in songs in the locker room. And I know maybe not a lot of people think about that. But for me, I was kind of always on edge, thinking about like, please don't say it. I don't want to feel uncomfortable, and that sort of thing. And I know kind of around the election here, there was a lot of tension in the locker room because there was different views. And for me, I think it's different as a woman of color because I kind of feel like maybe not as supported in that. Like if, I don't want to get too into politics, but I know that that was definitely a time where I kind of felt alone and like a little tension, and that got in the way of our ability to play together as a team.
Well, I appreciate your honesty there. And you're not alone. I mean, obviously you're speaking of specifically within your locker room. I think the election time was challenging for all of us in different ways because at least those of us in the US, because there were so many opinions. And so it was really a very divisive situation, which even in my recollection, I think the election can oftentimes be divisive, but this year was different. This year was very different. And I think some of it stems from, everything that was happening over the summer. I think some of it stems from, the viewpoints of those that were involved. And I'm curious, I guess I want to keep going on that. How about for you, Crystalyn? Have you felt supported in your locker room? Have there been times where, I know Shayla mentioned, what I've heard from my husband oftentimes as well is that, it's not my responsibility as a Black man to tell everybody how it feels to be a Black man. People need to learn, right? People need to educate themselves. How has all of this, I go back to George Floyd and the fact that George Floyd was murdered not far from where you live and not far from where you go to school. So I'm curious just how that all went for you. And as you finally got back into the locker room with your teammates, was it different? Did you feel supported before? You feel more supported now?
Yeah. Just crazy times this spring/summer for sure. We weren't really on campus at that time, so we were kind of all at home, wherever that was for people. So, but during that time, I mean, I got a lot of texts from whether it was from coaching staff or teammates, like just saying that they supported me during those hard times, which was awesome. But I mean, I fortunately, through my upbringing, have had like a really positive experience with my teammates and, being biracial. So I'm actually just very proud and appreciative of that, I haven't really gone through much stuff while playing hockey. So
how about for you, Sophie? Any instances, one thing that I have learned, and maybe you can speak to this, is that I'm working with another group in college hockey that's working on diversity and equity and inclusion and really trying to help change some culture in our sport. And I've been really fortunate to get to know and work with two, one's a coach and one's a player, but they're both Black Canadians. And they have shared a lot of the differences between being Black Canadian and maybe what Black Americans have been going through. And it was an interesting perspective because, I think they were trying to figure out where do they fit into that conversation, because maybe some of the historical things that have happened to Black Americans maybe didn't feel the same to Black Canadians. So I'm curious, Sophie, from your perspective, like as you watched unfold what was happening in America all summer, I'm guessing you were back home at that time, or were you in Columbus?
No, I was at home in Canada.
So as you're watching all of that, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was definitely appeared that things were crazy, and I felt fortunate to be at home since things were much more under control and more calm. And I think that when things are talked about as home, like everyone, there's not as many strongly opinions about it. So it's more like of an open conversation. But same with Crystalyn, I've had a very positive experience growing up in hockey, and I've always felt supported by my teammates. And then coming to Ohio State and having Liv Soares on the team for my first 2 years, she was also very supportive, and she was a vocal person who would say stuff if anything needed to be said. So I think I've always had a good experience in hockey.
I think it's so important to share that, right? Like, I think it's important to note that not everyone's had great experiences, but that a lot of you have, and that matters just as much, because it's oftentimes the good stories that don't get told. It's the ones that aren't so great that come to the forefront. So I appreciate your honesty there. As we transition away from this topic, I have one kind of last question for you, and that is just, what is your hope for our game over the next year, 5 years, 10 years? As you look back when you're done, what do you hope we can change in terms of really making the hockey for everyone in the space more comfortable for all players to play? Shayla, let me start with you.
I think the biggest thing that I'd like to see change is just to have more conversations, to talk about it, talk about diversity more, and anything like that. Because, like I said, there's like a culture of silence in hockey, I think. And I think like these are great conversations, like talking about race. It doesn't have to be so taboo. It doesn't have to be like kind of a hush hush topic. We can talk about it and learn different perspectives. And I think it makes me really happy just to see people talk about that more, be more open about it, and not feel so scared to dive into that.
Yeah, I can speak for someone who oftentimes still am still learning how to not be as scared, that it's okay to say the wrong thing sometimes too. And that's the honesty that comes to the table when we can just have conversations. How about for you, Sophie? What do you hope maybe continues to grow in our game to make it feel truly for everyone?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just getting the young kids involved and allowing them to not see the issues, like, because they're the next generation. So getting as many of them involved, and they're very open-minded. So just raising and mentoring them and helping them out will just help build and develop the sport, I think, greatly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Excited to get back to the grassroots level, right? And really grow it from the bottom up. How about for you, Crystalyn? Anything different? Anything that you really hope you see some change in the next few years?
I would also say the conversation part, like getting to know people's backgrounds and their own personal stories. Just like you were kind of saying earlier, like you don't really hear the good stories, you mostly hear the bad, or that's like mostly portrayed in society. So getting everyone's backgrounds and just being diverse in that way, it would be awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Appreciate that. So we're 2 weeks left of the regular season, a regular season that has been as atypical as hopefully any regular season that we're ever going to have. Sophie, let me ask you, as we gear up for the postseason and you think about kind of where we've gone this season, what are you most excited about for the next, 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe?
Yeah, no, I'm just excited for any games we have left with my teammates, like graduating seniors, like just making sure we're making the most of our time with them and enjoying ourselves. And like as of now, we don't have any more regular seasons games left. So just making sure we take advantage of every game we get to play for the rest of this season.
Got it. Crystal, how about for you? So we got to play, which was at the beginning of the season a bit of a concern. So when you think back maybe to 2020, 2021, like what will you tell people about playing hockey in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, I guess just patience and just being okay with the unknowns. I mean, we were told in the beginning of the season, like, we don't even know if we're going to be playing at all or whatever. So I guess just being patient with, whether you're going to play that weekend or even practice and all that. So yeah, same thing that Sophie said. I mean, last year, regular season series this weekend against Bemidji. So just taking advantage of that.
How about for you, Shayla? So we made it. We're almost to the end, which at one point, it's just been, at least for me, sort of this roller coaster, right? We got started, and then for Wisconsin, there was a big break. I mean, your guys' season has probably been the most disrupted of everyone. So how do you feel about being at this point right now? And, what's the focus right now for the Badgers?
So our coach calls it the danger zone, like we're almost there. So I think just making sure everyone is taking the proper precautions and remembering like nothing is guaranteed. We were kind of in this position last year where almost to the playoffs and then everything got shut down. So I think just cherishing like the games that we do have, and I'm just really excited for the playoffs this year because, like I said, last year we didn't even get to go to the Frozen Four or anything like that. So I'm just really excited to see where this goes. And it's definitely not normal, but it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. What's unique for all three of you is that you all were just about to start NCAA tournament action last year when everything went away. And it's crazy to think that we're about a year from that. I mean, I sometimes, I was just going back through some Final Face-Off stuff, and saw some notes about the coronavirus in my notes then, and kind of we were just transitioning to like not handshaking. You know, I mean, it's really crazy to think about where we were a year ago. And I'm with all of you, like just praying to get to the finish line, praying that you all have a chance to compete for a national championship because your teams are in the position to do that, and really hopeful that all the hard work that and the sacrifices that you all have made since October can play out. So fingers crossed. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up here on a speed note. I don't know if we can do that, but I'm going to just throw a few things at you, like favorite food, you know, favorite holiday, some quick answers so we can get to know you a little bit away from the ice. So this is an order on my screen. I don't know what you all are seeing, but we're going to go Shayla, Sophie, Crystalyn as we answer. Okay, so give me the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask the question. Everybody ready? It's a cheat for you, Crystalyn. You get time to think. All right, here we go. Favorite food?
Thai food.
Pizza.
Sushi.
Wow, different, all different. That's good. Okay, favorite movie?
A Hamilton movie.
Remember the Titans.
Baby mama.
Fantastic. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
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 So I have to ask. So most people have said Christmas, and only one was like, I can't remember who it was now, but only one player said, because we got a break from hockey. So I'm curious if it's Christmas for family or Christmas for a break from hockey, or maybe all of the above.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Here we go. Biggest fear?
Spiders.
Yeah, I have to say insects.
Being stuck in the middle of the ocean.
Ooh, that's a good
Oh,
one.
I haven't thought about that one till right now. Okay. So now I'm scared of that too. Thanks. Dream vacation?
Trip to Hawaii.
Trip to Italy.
Australia.
I'm coming with all of you. I like all three of those. Guilty pleasure TV show?
Criminal Minds.
Grey's Anatomy.
The Walking Dead.
I should go back to Grey's Anatomy for a second, because I feel like 3/4 of the people that I've talked to have said Grey's Anatomy, and it makes me laugh every time, only because that show has been around for so long that I can't. I feel like it's probably older than you, Sophie. Anyway, okay, let's see where I'm at. Game day pump up jam.
I like Money in the Grave.
Sophie's gonna tell me about the booty music or something that gets played at Ohio State.
No, we listen to Big Booty, but I don't think I have a specific song, really just a mix of them.
It's funny.
Anything by Chris Brown.
Oh, really? Okay. You're taking me back there too. I love Chris Brown. Okay, here we go. Favorite WCHA opponent and why? And now you're all on the screen together, so this is gonna get fun.
Probably Ohio State, because it always gets pretty rough and it's a fun time. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a hard one for me between Minnesota and Wisconsin. I think maybe Minnesota, just because like a lot of my friends on the team are from Minnesota, so I don't know. It's just fun playing against them.
And all your coaches.
Yeah.
A lot of your coaches were there. Okay, Crystal, I'm sorry.
Yeah, same thing as Sophie. I'd say both Ohio State and Wisconsin, just border battle, and then Ohio State, just always competitive.
Yeah, it seems like Ohio State, Minnesota has kicked up a notch here in the last couple of years, so it's challenging the border battle just a bit. All right, here we go. Best hockey memory.
When I scored in the shootout to make it to the championship.
I think for me is when our team won the WCHA last year.
State championship sophomore year.
Those are all so good and different. Okay, last one. I'm gonna reverse it this time so that Crystalyn has to go first. So now we're gonna go Crystalyn, Sophie, Shayla. What's one thing nobody knows about you?
I have 7 brothers.
I feel like you were totally prepared for that.
Wow. That was
Now I have to go back. You have 7 brothers?
Yeah.
Do you have any sisters?
Nope.
Girl. Whew. You made it. You've made it. You'll be set for life. You got 7 brothers. All right, Sophie, your turn.
I don't know how you think it's happened so quickly, but Sorry, I'm really struggling here. I also played lacrosse like very competitively growing up too.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize lacrosse was a big thing in Canada. Or maybe it wasn't, just was where you were.
It was just starting out girls lacrosse actually. Like there was only a few teams, I think.
So your future includes hockey or your future includes lacrosse?
Just hockey from now.
All right, Shayla, what about you? What's one thing nobody knows about you?
I play violin.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the first like 4 or 5 guests that I had, everybody had this really unique like talent or this odd enough for us to have a variety show. So that's going to be our off season. We're going to have a WCHA variety show. You guys are so great. Thank you, Shayla. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Crystalyn. As we mentioned, a couple weeks left of the season. As of today, Minnesota is headed to Bemidji to wrap up their regular season. Both the Badgers and the Buckeyes are off this weekend. And we'll see what happens next week as we try to wrap this thing up. WCHA final face-off coming up in a couple of weeks. Appreciate your honesty, appreciate your smiles, appreciate you being leaders in this space and being willing to talk with me. And I don't think this will be our last conversation. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and stay tuned to some WCHA hockey this weekend.